Welcome to Diary of a Sheep Dairy Farmer, where we talk all things dairy sheep, from breeding to lambing to milking and everything in between and outside. I'm your host Becca, owner, operator, and glorified farmhand of Hidden Hollow Sheep Dairy. Welcome back, guys, to another day of dairy sheep. As promised, here's a little update on my August lambing group. I brought in the 28 girls that are due, and surprisingly, some of them actually look bred. So that is a win. So far, no lambs, but there are some I can tell right away that didn't get bred at all, but I am going to keep them in for now because I have to decide if I'm going to throw a ram in with them, with the ones that didn't get bred, as soon as the last ewe drops a lamb, which should be sometime around September 4th, or if I want to wait until the 20th when I will be putting in the rams with the rest of my breeding groups. For now, they're just staying in so I can keep an eye on them. I did do a bag check. There are some that are starting to bag up, but with first timers, I have learned that they could surprise me and not bag up until the week that they are due, and I just don't want to miss anyone. Okay, so today's topic, meat versus milk. Nothing frustrates me more than when I get comments on Instagram posts or YouTube videos from people who they mean well, but they have only watched the big meat producers on YouTube and somehow find me and my little sheep dairy page and then try to tell me how I should be feeding my milk sheep, when I should be breeding my milk sheep or weaning my milk sheep, and not understanding the difference. Dairy sheep do not get fed like meat sheep for starters. They do not mature as quickly as meat sheep for seconders. Secondly, oh boy, it's going to be one of those days. Okay, let's start over. Let's break it down a bit. Let's look at three big differences between dairy sheep and meat sheep. Number one, milk production. The difference between milk sheep and meat sheep is most notable here. On average, dairy sheep will stay in milk between about 120 to 240 days or more. I think I've said in the past, there is a dairy, good friend of mine, her ewes will produce for a year or more. And they can produce anywhere from 400 to over 1,000 pounds of milk per year. And then meat sheep, on the other hand, will normally only stay in milk for about 90 to 150 days on average. Yes, some can go longer, some can go shorter, same with dairy sheep, and produce only about 100 to 200 pounds of milk per year. Dairy sheep can easily produce milk for you and their lambs, while meat sheep, they can only produce milk for one or the other. Nutritional needs. Dairy sheep have higher nutritional needs than milk sheep. They need more protein, more energy to produce milk. You have heard me say, I don't feed grain to my sheep, and I should specify I don't, except when I am milking them. That is also when I increase their feed, and not only do they get grain, but they also get a bump in their hay consumption. And this is where testing your hay comes in. Very, very important things to do, because then you know exactly which cutting has the most protein, the most beneficial feed for your sheep in this time, to be able to help them produce the most amount of milk for you, especially if you are lamb sharing, for you and that lamb. So other characteristics, this is where we're going to break it down a little bit. The very first one obviously is the wool. Dairy sheep are wool sheep, meaning they need sheared. I don't think anyone has successfully made a hair dairy sheep, one that naturally sheds, and no shearing is required. And after learning to shear my own sheep this last month, I would be all over that. Give me a self-shedding dairy sheep any day, and I would be a happy camper. All right, meat sheep are going to grow faster and finish off heavier. Now I'm going to say I have seen and heard conflicting comments about this. There are those who say that dairy sheep will grow faster because dairy sheep produce more milk and the lambs get more milk. Makes perfectly good sense, right? And I would agree if you weren't taking any of that milk for yourself and your family and letting the ewes raise their lambs. But then what's the point of having a dairy sheep if you aren't going to milk them and use that milk? But they will finish heavier, meat sheep will, because their resources are going into growing meat on their body rather than going to produce milk. So yes, they are going to finish off heavier, but your sheep are never going to be, I think they finish off, I want to say hanging weight on a sheep is like 75, 85 pounds. So you're still not going to get like a ton of meat off of a sheep. But still, if you like lamb, which we do, we eat a lot of it, you're going to be happy regardless of what you get in the end. Okay, dairy sheep mature at a slower rate. Now people tend to get confused when I say this. When I say maturity, I am not talking about how soon you can breed them. I am talking about when they are fully grown maturity. Dairy sheep mature at 2 years old, but are adults around 8 months to a year. That means that they have finished growing out, their bones have solidified, etc. For example, dairy cows don't mature until they are 5 years old. This is when they are like at their peak performance for milking. But they are considered adults at 2 years old. Compare this to meat sheep that mature around 1 to 1.5 years old and are adults. I'm going to use that term loosely because in the meat world, the term is used as lamb, not sheep. I don't understand that. I've never understood. You know, in cows, you have beef. Why in sheep do we use lamb? Why do we use baby for? Anyway, that's totally off topic, but it's always bothered me. Anyway, lamb, they're mature between 5 to 6 months of age. And so that is when they are considered adults between 5 to 6 months of age. For those of you who have a dairy line and a meat line, what differences have you noticed in your flocks? Let me know in the comments. I know this is short, guys. I am on a time crunch. We're trying to get hay in before the rain hits, and I'm kind of pushed this week. I do apologize. Next week and the week after, we're going to kind of continue down this line of comparisons a little bit more. Next week, we will compare sheep milk versus goat milk, and we're going to get a little bit technical and go into, your breakdowns of your proteins and your fats and all the stuff that will make your head swim and confuse you. I will try my best not to confuse you. And then the week after that, we will do the same with cow milk versus sheep milk. So as always, I appreciate you all being here and thank you for your support. I would be ever so grateful if you would leave a review or share this podcast with your dairy sheep loving friends. Anything to get the word out. As always, you can follow me on Instagram at Diary of a Sheep Dairy Farmer. And if you want to follow the chaos around the farm, you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Hidden Hollow Sheep Dairy. If there are any topics you are interested in, or if you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, please let me know. You can reach out to me at hiddenhollowidaho@gmail.com. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll talk to you again next week.